I have a piece of maple I cut quite a long time ago off of a log. Grain is running in this direction. I'm going to see what I can come up with this. The only thing I can think of to secure it to start with is a glue block on this side. I'm just going to hot glue it. I have no idea what to expect, but with this burl, it's going to be some pretty grain if I don't turn it all away. So I'm just going to try for a shallow bowl from this, maybe even a platter. So stick around and let's get to work. I put a small divot in approximately the center of this face. Now I've got a dowel with a point on it into there. It's being held with the tailstock, and I've lined it up in this direction with the bedways as well as I can. And I put a torpedo level on it to level it out horizontally. And now I'm going to put hot glue on this side around here, real thick. I want it to hold as well as possible. And then I can start turning it. Now I'm going to give that lots of time to cool, and then I'll start the turning. As you might already suspect, because it has heavy burl on this side and nothing on this side, it's way out of balance. In fact, this is turning at only 250 RPM, and the stand is shaking quite a bit. Because of that, I'm going to have to remove this burl, and I don't want to waste it. I don't know that I'll ever actually use it for anything, but I'm not willing to just throw it away. So I'm going to take a saw and I'm going to cut it off right across here, and someday I might just be able to use that. I'm going to take this dowel out of here now. I'm just going to see if this will snap off. Okay, there we go. And now at 500, it's wobbling about like it was doing before. So I can start turning this now. And I've got a nice piece of burl here that I have no idea what I'll do with, but maybe someday in the future I can use that. Now the first thing I'm going to do is try to round this, true it up a little bit, and I'll be using my 3/8 inch bowl gouge, and I will come from this side toward the center and this side toward the center. If I try going all the way across, I have a serious risk of a lot of chip out that I don't want to have happen. I'm sure you noticed that I brought the tailstock up for a little additional support just to help that glue. And I'm going to start taking some of the inside out. Hate to take all of this little bit of burl off. There's some beautiful figure there, but I don't think I'm going to have a lot of choice. I'll just keep working on this. Seems to be slightly better balanced. It's a long way to go yet, but it's coming around. I'm just going to keep taking away a little bit more in here. I'm going to start turning from the back now, give this a little bit of shape. I don't want just a straight side on it. And I'm going to switch to my 1/2 inch bowl gouge. See if the heavier shank might keep it from bouncing so much. All I can do is try. Improved a bit. I'm going to keep working on this outside a little bit longer. It's difficult to turn something like this when your gouge is spending so much time in mid-air, cutting nothing. I'm going to see if I can do a little shear scraping on here, how that's going to work. Oh, that's done a very decent job. I'm about halfway up. I have to turn this a little to shear scrape from there. But I'm happy with that. Of course, up here I'm cutting more air than I was down there. Not too bad. I'm quite pleased with that, as a matter of fact. Now I want to see if I can face this off here, clean that up. That's not too bad. A little bit rough, but I was expecting that. It's going to take some sanding. I'm going to go back into the inside now. I'm going to remove as much as I can of this center nub so I can pull the tailstock out of the way. I have my depth gauge set to the depth that I want, and that's just about perfect. I'm going to try this now with my 1/4 inch bowl gouge. It might do a finer cut. I'll give this a try. With this 1/4 inch gouge that far over the tool rest, I'm getting some chatter. I'm going to try repositioning the tool rest, but I may have to go from here with the 3/8 gouge. Oh, that certainly is a much nicer cut up around here. Got a few places where my chisel was jumping that I need to clean up. I'm going to give that a try again with the 1/4 inch. One thing that's good practice, especially if you're a new turner, but even for seasoned turners, is to cut to a point and then pull your tool away. Then put it back in and see if you can pick up where the cut was without showing any marks. That's almost as good as I'm going to get with the tool. I'm going to go from here now just a little bit more, and then I'll do the sanding. I think that's as good as I'm going to get with the tools. I'm going to go to some sanding now. These areas that are broken up by the natural edge, I'm going to have to lock the headstock and then do some careful sanding without it spinning, which means a great deal of time. Same is true on this face and quite a bit of this face. So, no use subjecting you to the sanding. I'll be back. Alright, it's sanded up to 400 grit, and that took a long time, somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. Now I've turned this down to the slowest speed my lathe will run at, which is 100 RPM, and I'm just going to use this rattle can of Varathane and see what kind of finish that will put on. I don't want to put on too much, I don't want runs. Hopefully just enough. I'm going to give that some time to dry, leave this running. I'll be back. A little word of warning for you. When I decided to use this finish, it didn't even occur to me to check the tip. And when I put it on, it was far too coarse, and it left a real pebbled finish, which I did not like. Now I've taken the tip off and I'm soaking it in mineral spirits. I'll try it later and see how it works. But what I've done to correct it was run it with 4-aught steel wool, and it seems to have flattened it out nicely. It's far from a gloss finish, but it is a nice smooth finish. I may leave it like that. It'll depend on what happens with that tip, whether it sprays better. But for now I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to carry on with the back side. want to use my bowl gouge now and make a flat here that will be the foot. And I want the rest to be concave as it goes in. Now to do this, I want my flute closed so that it doesn't skate across here when I start it. Clean that up a little better than that, but I've got the flat here, so it's coming along. And I'll be able to clean that up better when I've reversed this. I let the tip soak in mineral spirits for about an hour, blew it out with compressed air, and did a test on a piece of wood, and it seems to be working just fine. So I'm going to try this again. I've got it down to 100 RPM. I'm going to do very light coats, probably 3 or 4, to be sure I've got enough. Just going to go with that. I'd rather have a few light coats than one heavy coat that's too heavy. And I'll be back after I get a few coats on. The inside turned out much better than it was before. It's certainly not as nice as when I could use the friction polish, but with the natural edge, of course, that's just not possible. The outside, I didn't care for it, so I just used the steel wool and took it back down. And it's quite smooth, I really like it. I'll leave the inside the way it is. Now my next step is going to be taking it off of the glue block. I've wrapped a sheet of shop towel around the end of this dowel, which I'm going to put between the center of the bowl and this live center. I'll tighten that up in there, and when I'm taking the glue off, I'm hoping that's going to keep it on there, keep it from flying off if I get all the glue off too quickly. I'll be using my 3/8 inch bowl gouge to try taking this glue off as gently as I can. I got most of the glue off. Now I'm just going to try to force this putty knife in between the glue block and the bottom of the bowl. Work my way around until I can get it off. There we go. Now my next step is to figure out a way to reverse chuck this. I'm going to work on that idea for a minute, and I'll be back when I figure it out. Well, I checked out a couple of different methods, and the one that I think is going to work best is my coal jaws. Although there's a large area here, 2 of the supports on the coal jaws won't touch this, but more than 3/4 of the way around it's going to be supported, so I think it's going to work. Let's take this over to the lathe and have a look at it. Alright, now to mount it in here, I'm going to end up with these two supports not touching, and this one is not touching. So out of the 8, I'll have 5 that are actually holding this piece. Tighten it up well without overdoing it, I hope. I think that's going to work fine, but I'm going to put that dowel back in here to support this. There's the center. Now the bottom is not very thick, so I can't take all that much off. I'll be going with my 3/8 inch bowl gouge again. I'll try running this at 750 RPM, and we'll see what we can come up with. I didn't do a very good job trying to turn this from the back, so the first thing I need to do is clean this up a little bit. Now I'm going to sand this. I'm going to leave this up here as long as I can, because this is going to be removed anyway to put my logo coin in there. I'll be back after the sanding is finished. I'm just going to put a couple of rings here with the skew chisel first. I'll sand this and then I'll be back. Now I'm going to drill a 15/16 inch recess for my logo coin. It'll be turning at 250 RPM. I don't like to turn it too fast, it can overheat the bit. Not good for the bit or the wood. Now I'm going to take this off, glue the logo coin in, and then I'm going to sign and date it. I'm going to take the whole thing off the lathe, cold jaws and all. Then I'll put it back on and I'll put sanding sealer and finish on the bottom. Now I'm going to apply my sanding sealer, which is a 50-50 mix of Zinsser Seal Coat and methyl hydrate. I'll just use a little bit of shop towel to put this on. Turn this down to 100 RPM. I'll let that dry for a couple of minutes now. Then I'm going to sand it with 400 grit, just to very, very lightly. Then I'll put the finish on it. I'll be back for that. I'm ready to put the finish on now. Got some nice purple and different colors in here. I particularly like the bird's eye that's down here. I'm hoping this friction finish will make those colors pop. My usual 1/3 shellac, 1/3 boiled linseed oil, and 1/3 lacquer thinner. Spin this at 100 RPM to apply it with this shop towel. Gonna let that dry for a few minutes. Sand lightly again, put a second coat of this friction finish on, and then I'll be back. I did not sand after the second coat of finish. Now it's a friction polish, which means I need speed to build heat to cure it. But in the coal jaws, which I believe are only rated for 600, I'm not willing to turn it up to my usual 2000, but I will go with 1000. We'll see what this does. And that's looking not too bad at all. I'm happy with it. Well, there you have it. A little shallow bowl, good for nuts maybe, something like that. I love maple, almost all figured maple, of any variety. It's just wonderful stuff. Beautiful bird's eye in this. I like the natural edge. I'm happy with it. Now a word about coal jaws. I know there are people out there going to say it's not safe to use these unless all 8 of these supports are being used. To some extent I agree with that. On the same token, I've used it with just 4 and different methods with the coal jaws. They're very handy, but if you don't think it's safe to do what I'm doing, don't do it, please. I don't want someone out there to get hurt because they're doing what I'm doing. It's inherently dangerous, this hobby of ours, so be safe. Have fun in your shop, but be safe. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe and have a great day. Bye-bye now.